Test. This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. The board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Lawrence?
Here.
Mr. Sion?
Here.
Mr. Haber?
Here.
Mr. Halpin?
Present.
Mr. Shekels?
Here. Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and video taped and may be carried live on television. First, I'll outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by the staff. Then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chairman. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and/or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chairman. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium after being recognized, speak into the microphone, and state their name, address, and any affiliation to the case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony is given to the board only. No comments or questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The board will hear only new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and stating their support of the previous testimony. Now, will all persons who may give testimony this evening please stand, raise your right hand, and swear or affirm? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I move the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Are there any further changes to the minutes from the previous meeting? Hearing none, I move that the minutes be approved by unanimous consent. Prior to starting our meeting this evening, on behalf of the board, we'd like to recognize both Brad and PJ. This is the first meeting. We haven't had either one of them with us. They're staff members. They've moved to other places in their career. We want to acknowledge the support they've given us and how valuable they've been to the board. Please read the staff summary for case 17-2022.
Great. And just a few housekeeping items tonight. We have a very lengthy agenda, as you can tell. So we are going to be quite brief in our presentation, but the full staff reports, a copy are on the table outside. We only made 5 copies for each case, so if there aren't enough hard copies, they are available on the township's website as well. If you wanted to follow along, they're under andersontownship.oh.gov under Committees, Board of Zoning Appeals. The presentation is not on the website, but the staff reports are. And with that, Natalie is going to present our first case tonight.
The first case is case 17-2022 BZA. Applicant is Nicole Lawrence of MI Homes of Cincinnati, and they are the property owners. The location is 7198 Glen Valley Drive. It is Zone C residence. And the request is to have a variance to allow a 4x8 temporary sign to be posted on this address for 18 months. This is also a continuation from last month's BZA meeting. And since then, the applicant has modified the location and duration for this sign to be within Lot 1 and to be remain there for 18 months rather than 24 that was proposed previously. And then this is the property image, so the outlined in red is the proposed lot for the sign. An aerial image and a topography image. On the left is what the sign looks like, and on the right is the site plan for where it is proposed to be placed. And then this is more zoomed out site plan considering all the other lots. This is looking at the sign looking southwards on Markley. And then this is an image from across the street. And another one showing more of the lot 1. And then the other houses being currently built. And then an image looking north on Markley of the sign. And then this is where it was previously proposed to be, which is on the panhandle of a different lot. Staff is supportive of the proposal for reasons stated in the staff report. And then this is continuation of the staff findings. And then staff recommends that should this variance be request be approved, the applicant shall relocate this temporary sign outside of the right-of-way within 30 days of this decision, and the applicant shall remove the temporary sign once all the lots in Anderson Valley subdivision are sold.
So since this case was continued from last month, if you gave testimony last month, it has been captured in the minutes, so there won't be a need to repeat the testimony, but we'll definitely hear from the applicant. and the board.
Are there any questions from the staff, from the board? None. Would the appellant or the appellant's representative please come to the podium, speak in the microphone, state your name, address, any affiliation, and present your appeal if you choose to.
Jeff Truitt with My Homes. You know, we're Waterstone Boulevard in Mason. I think we satisfied everything that we had been asked of us from the last meeting, so I really don't have anything to add. Just I think we made it work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in support of the appellant? Hearing none, is there anyone here who would like to speak against the appellant? Hearing none, are there any further questions from the board? Okay.
Just so I'm clear, the sign is being relocated or maintained its presence in lot number 1. It's being moved out of the right-of-way into the new lot, and the time extension has been reduced from 24 months down to 18 months.
That's
Correct.
correct.
That's the way I understand it as well.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. The sign will need to be moved outside the right-of-way, and
Okay.
a zoning certificate will need to be issued, and yes, they are requesting 18 months.
We're now going to go into what we call, a closed session, but you'll be able to hear everything we say. The board has the right to do a closed session outside of here in another area, but we choose not to do so unless there is a very extreme case that would require a lot of consultation and discussion. So, hearing no further comments, if there's no objection from the board, do we have a motion to close the public hearing on this case?
So moved. Second?
We call the roll.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sine?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Is there anyone on the board who would like to comment? No comments? Is
Well,
it?
we've been faced with this before, and I think a couple things is, relocating from that panhandle, which was proposed at our last month's meeting, to the location of lot number 1, getting it out of the right-of-way and onto the private property, and diminishing the time from 24 months to 18 months is, I think, a willingness on the part of the applicant to work with us. I like the conditions that staff have included, and I would add another one, which was to make sure that the sign remains in good condition, I think it's something that we ought to consider granting.
Is there a motion?
Okay, Mr. Chair, regarding case number 17-2022 BZA, I move that we grant a variance request to allow a temporary sign to be posted for a duration of 18 months. I'm going to include staff's report as a part of the motion. The conditions being that the applicant shall relocate the existing temporary sign to outside the right-of-way within 30 days of this decision, and shall remove the temporary, condition number 2 shall be to remove the temporary sign within 18 months of the date of this decision, or once all of the lots are sold, whichever comes first. Condition 3 is that the sign be maintained in good condition.
Second the motion.
And I'm going, excuse me, I'm going to reference the drawings dated June 23rd, 2022.
Second.
Will the secretary call the roll?
I had my packet from last month,
Okay.
which is what's causing me. Thank you, July 15th. Thank you for the clarification.
All right.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sine?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Now we need to come out of executive session. Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Will you call the roll? Second?
Second.
Will you call the roll?
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sine?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Is that going to be our procedure, Mr. Chair, that every time we go into executive, that we're going to make a motion to come back
You
out?
don't have to.
We don't have to come out?
No.
Okay.
Open the public hearing and close the public hearing. You don't have to do it in
Okay.
executive
All right.
session.
Okay. We've done it both ways. Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Will you please read the staff summary? Oh, but you can, if you could, free, the resolution should be ready when? Another day or two?
We'll let you know when it's ready.
Okay, all right. Okay. Please read the staff summary for case 18-2022.
The applicant for case 18-2022 BZA is Sign Connection on behalf of Anderson Smiles, who are the tenants, on behalf of 7915 Beachmont LLC, the property owners. The location is 7815 Beachmont Avenue. It is zoned E for retail business, and the request is for a face change on a non-conforming freestanding sign on the property. Again, the face change is to an existing non-conforming 15 by 8 foot, approximately 18.5 foot tall freestanding sign. Has 120 square feet of surface area. And the sign is non-conforming as the maximum permitted square footage of the sign is 70 square feet, and the maximum height is 15 feet for this property. The current property owner purchased the property in May 24th, 2021. In July 2021, staff received a complaint regarding the landscaping and grass overgrowing on the property. On November 29th, 2021, Anderson Township sent a letter notifying the owners that per Article 5.5C3CII of the zoning resolution, a non-conforming freestanding sign must be immediately removed or modified to conform to the current signage regulations if business activity ceases for a period of 3 or more months. On December 20th, 2021, staff issued a stamp off for an interior renovation of Anderson Smile Center. This is showing the property. Beachmont Avenue is along the north. This is an aerial, and this is a topography map of the site. This is the site plan submitted, showing the phase change of the sign and the dimensions. This is what the sign currently looks like. And this is it relative to Beachmont Avenue. Then this is the other side of the sign currently. And this is the property that is adjacent to the sign. Staff is not in support of the request for reasons listed in the staff report, one of which including that this will alter the essential character of the neighborhood based on signage recommendations for neighborhood 4 of the township's adopted Beachmont plan for which the property is in. Continued staff findings. And these are the standards to be considered.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Will the appellant or the appellant's representative please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, any affiliation, and present your appeal.
Hi, I am Jane Fear, and I am from Sign Connection, and I am the representative for Anderson Smiles at 7815 Beachmont Avenue. And the variance is being requested because the existing sign that is at the property is larger than what the current code allows. At one time, the code did allow this size sign, or it never would have been erected to begin with. The reason that the current owner of the building has been told that the sign needs to come down is that it's non-conforming with the current code, and that when there is business that has been ceased at that location for over 3 months, that the new zoning code becomes effective, and that there is no grandfather clause that would keep the old sign conforming. So the reason that the business ceased at this location is because one owner moved out of the building and another owner purchased the building, and it was during COVID, so nobody really knows why, when or why business stopped. The business probably didn't really stop in the location because there was a realtor involved, I would imagine, in the purchase of the property, so that would be considered, ongoing business at the property. The existing sign is 120 square feet. The code says they're allowed 70 square feet. So it is larger than what the current code allows. You can see other signs down the street that are just as large as this sign that have not been taken down. The sign is 18.5 feet tall, which is not that much taller than a 15-foot sign. When the findings were proposed about how signage in this neighborhood is modest, 70 square feet is not really modest if that is conforming with the code. That's a 7-foot by 10-foot sign, where this is an 8-foot by 15-foot sign. So once you get a sign that's 7-foot by 10-foot in place of this, it's not going to look that much different, honestly. When they compare it to other signs that are in the neighborhood that are monument signs, I can see how those are appealing to look at. But if the code says you can go 15 feet tall, that's not exactly modest either. So obviously, if they have a small, any sign that they have, they're probably going to be able to yield a reasonable return. But the business owner did not know when they purchased the property that the sign was not conforming. I personally don't think that the character of the neighborhood, seeing, you know, what the neighborhood looks like with other signs around it, is going to be substantially altered if this sign is permitted to stay up. The spirit of the zoning is to make sure that, you know, all the signs are conforming, but often signs are grandfathered in that are existing. And the difference in what the code allows and what this sign presents is not that much different.
Are there any questions from the board?
Did have one question. You mentioned there was a Realtor involved. I didn't follow the.
I personally don't know that. That is something that, you know, when you're talking about ongoing business in the property, you know, the doors weren't open, COVID was happening. But, you know, when one business goes out and another goes in, oftentimes there usually is some kind of realtor that's showing the building on a regular basis. So it's not like there wasn't anything happening there ever.
Okay, so you're saying there was no Realtor involved?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Do we have any idea as to how long the sign's been there?
No, I do not know. We can check to see how old the building was, or is.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in support of the appeal? Hearing none, we'll now take testimony from those persons who oppose the appeal. Is there anyone present who opposes the appeal? Hearing none, are there any further questions from the board? Hearing no further comments, if there's no objection from the board, do we have a motion to close the public hearing on this case?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Would this call the roll?
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sines?
Aye.
Mr. Hager?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye. Who would like to lead the discussion?
So the building was built in 1972, which obviously predates our signage regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, you comments?
The only thing I have is the sign, am I reading this right? The polycarbonate panels? This isn't gonna be like a lighted sign, is it? It's just gonna be a sign? To where it's like on the road?
I can't answer that question. We'll have to bring,
I can't answer it either, but it could, I mean, it is permitted to be light. And I can't remember if the Anderson Hills Eye Care sign was lit or not, but it can be. It's permitted to be lit.
Okay. That's all I have.
Paul? Steve?
Well, there's a couple of factors that lead me to grant the request. The first one is, I think the sign's been there a while. And, you know, for both height and size, even though there's a change to the base of it. So I'm thinking that it's not going to have a detriment to what is already there. The second point I want to make is the notion that that the current signage regulations are enforced if business activity ceases for a period of 3 or more months. I understand that, and here I think we're probably, the business hasn't ceased for a a duration of time, but it is closed. And we've got a new business going back into that building, which I'm happy to see. Not quite sure what I was maybe leading towards that. And I guess the third item is, it sure would be nice, and I think the staff's report about Krispy Kreme and some of the other newer Dewey's, some of the newer developments that are conforming to this, to the signage regulations, you know, as we continue to see Beachmont develop, to see all those conform like-minded makes a heck of a lot of sense to me, about improving the quality of Beachmont, the quality of the design, the quality of the signage. That's where I am right now.
John?
No comments.
I think I'm sort of in the same quandary as you are, Steve. You know, the sign's been there forever. But, you know, the zoning rules for signage have changed, okay? The others, new ones are in compliant. And I'm.
Right, we make them
Yeah,
comply, and here we've got
yes.
like a re-signage kind of a thing.
And so, you know, just sitting here among ourselves talking, I'm sort of leaning to not granting it for that reason, because the zoning regulation was put into place to change the appearance of this whole area as you go up Beachmont. And I do have that quandary of the sign been there forever. And if businesses had rolled over from one to the other, I would have no difficulty granting this. You know, if one business had ceased and another business had started,
Right.
I wouldn't have an issue with this. But this has been a vacant property for a substantial piece of time. Another
You know how
sign,
long?
I don't know, but it's been, you know, 6, 8 months, whatever, at least. And other signage in the area has complied.
Right. Well, it'd be great if this one did.
And this sign isn't in place right now anyway.
No, this is the
They're just gonna
proposed
change the
sign.
face out.
The framing is there.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the framing. That would just go inserted in that area, John.
So basically, they'd have to take out that that
Yeah.
framing.
Take that panel out and replace it with the new panel.
But if they had to go to code, they'd have to replace the framing.
Well, it
They'd have to
depends.
lower it and
I'm,
then adjust
Lower it and
this.
adjust the
I'm not a structural engineer in any way, shape, or form, but a possibility of it being cut off and lowered and reframed, it would be there.
their answer.
There was another case up on Beachmont. And I don't remember where it was. And there were, do you remember that? There were a couple signs, one was kind of right in front of the other, and it was regarding, this signage was actually pointing to an office building that was back behind the retail, other side of the street, I think, on up. And the result was, we asked them to modify it.
So I'm just going to state my personal opinion right now on this. I believe for 3 reasons I would not grant it, and those are, it is substantial. The essential character would change, would be altered, let's just say, altered from what the intent of the zoning is. And in the spirit and the intent of the zoning, you know, would not be observed. Anyone else's opinion?
So, in looking at this picture, I see this sign in the background. It's for Puppywood, which is right next to the new taco restaurant. which used to be, I believe, some sort of car audio place, and before that it was something else, and then something else. And that thing is way taller than this one. It's got more signs on it, but the only difference is that that one wasn't vacant for 3 months.
As long as, yes, if
So-
the operation would cease, then the current, for the 3 months or longer.
So
The way I understand it, is it
This,
correct,
the
Paul?
sign that you see in the foreground there is Puppywood, and Puppywood is still in operation. The building that was torn down was the old Corellis Furniture. It was a white two-story building. It did not have a freestanding sign. The Condado was Anderson Auto, and before that it was Tuffy. It did have a freestanding sign, and they removed it, and they decided they didn't need a freestanding sign, so they just have wall signs.
Okay.
But Puppywood, that building has not been vacant, or business hasn't ceased, but it is a non-conforming sign too.
Okay. Because I'm thinking that one is much more obnoxious than this.
It's very
And
large, yes.
If I picture myself driving down Beachmont Avenue, I don't know if it's because I'm used to it. I just don't notice it.
Yeah, I don't notice it.
I mean, it's not something that sticks out at me like that thing needs to come down.
You gotta slow down, Scott.
Yeah, well, that might be true too. My kids don't go to IHM anymore. But I don't know. I don't think it's that much of a nuisance.
Paul, your thoughts?
I mean, the question of the business ceased to exist, I draw our attention to the fact that this building was purchased in May 24th, 2021. I mean, if there was a continuation of business, that's easy to provide documents that, hey, I bought this business, from the prior owner, and so I'm continuing it on. And that's something that I would have expected to see to prove a continuation of business. Otherwise, it seems more just a hands-off, I want your building, I want the real estate, and I don't care about the business, in which case business ceases to exist.
So what's your sense of support or not?
Since based on the township rules, as the business has ceased to exist, in my opinion, of longer than 3 months, then they would be forced to comply with the existing regulations.
Steve, have you had any further thoughts?
No, but I'm, with the additional comments here is, given what staff has written here for us, is it makes sense that due to the time limitations, it makes sense that the sign be made to conform.
John, your thoughts?
I agree.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, regarding case number 18-2022 BZA, I move that we deny a variance for a face change to an existing non-conforming sign. Again, I'm going to reference staff's report to be included within our motion. Hold that thought. What about time limitations?
As far as when? This-
So basically, the sign's in violation now. We were pending this decision. So if your decision is to deny the variance, then we would work with the property owner to bring the property into compliance. And
Okay.
we would
So
pursue a
just-
zoning violation.
We don't have
It
to put
remains
it in the,
non-compliant.
you will work with them.
Okay.
to make
Correct.
that happen. That's fair.
And staff did a great job and so I'm going to limit my items regarding anything to be added to the motion to staff's report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Will the secretary call the roll?
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Ms. Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Shekel.
Aye. The report, typically when we deny, it has to go for review and through the township attorney before we can publish it, okay? So they will advise you as to when that's available, okay? All right. Will you please read the staff summary for case 19-2022?
The applicant is Jeff Wires, property owner. The property is also owned by Cynthia Reeser. It's 1670 Barnesdale Court, Zone C residence. And the variance is a request to allow a 39 feet of a 6-foot high privacy fence in the side yard, where 6 feet privacy fences are only permitted in the rear yard per Article 5.2A9 of the zoning resolution. And again, the proposed development is to extend the existing fence up to the front of the house. And per Article 5.2 of the resolution, 6-foot privacy fences are not permitted in the front and side yard areas. The current owners purchased this property in November of 2019. However, Cynthia has owned the property since 2003. And there is an existing 6-foot fence in the rear yard. This is the property on Barnesdale. And this is an aerial image of it and the topography of the area. This was the site plan submitted, so the addition to the fence will be on the southern part of the property in that side yard. This is an image looking at that same side yard. There is currently a fence there that is on the other property, and then you can see that the property owner has a fence in the rear yard. This is looking at to the adjacent property to the south. This is the front of the entire house. This is just another view of the side yard of the property. The same, looking at both, and then this is the fence in the rear yard. So staff is not supportive of the variance request for reasons stated in the staff report. And then these are the standards to be considered.
Are there any questions from the board? Steve, John? You, any questions from the board regarding this?
No.
Okay.
Just one clarification on that. So the fence that you see in the picture, we believe it belongs to the property to the right, and it is a non-compliant fence. So that would not normally be permitted to be in that particular area.
Okay. All right. We will now take from from the appellant. Is the appellant representative here? Please come to the podium. Speak into the microphone, state your name, address, any affiliation, and present your appeal.
Good evening, Jeff Weir, current owner of 1670 Barnesdale Court. And my wife purchased that property, Cindy Reeser, in 2003. The date you mentioned, 2019, was merely a refinance. I guess going forward, they stated that it would be a 39-foot privacy fence. Well, I'd like to point out, obviously, I think that the 39-foot would be perpendicular to eyesight, if you will. It mentions in the report that it's highly visible. From the street, I don't think that it is. The gate would be 42 inches, plus 6 inches on each side for the post, 4 or 6 inches on each side for the post. So that's less than 4 feet in front. The 39 feet, again, runs perpendicular to the eyesight. I've got pictures tonight I didn't submit originally because I didn't think of it, that it frankly would be necessary, but in my neighborhood, I live on a cul-de-sac, as you'll see, a very short cul-de-sac. There's only two houses till the end. Within that area, there are 3 other houses that have fences that are much longer visibly to the eyesight than mine, and quite frankly, of lesser quality than what I'm proposing. I've got those pictures here. I don't know that I can submit them at this point or not. Thank you. And to continue, in both my personal and frankly my professional opinion, I've been a real estate agent, a realtor based out of Anderson Township for over 20 years. This fence would add value to both properties. The fence that's proposed to be allowed, a 4-foot, 75% vacant fence would, frankly, it would be more obtrusive, more unsightly, connected to an existing privacy fence. And actually, it would not, accomplish what I'm trying to do. In one of the pictures, or two of the pictures, if you notice, that side area of my house where the ground is all beat up, several times I've tried to plant grass there, and the neighbors' dogs run through there. Probably some deer as well. But that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
So you're going to go up to the edge of your house?
It would stop short of the edge of the house, sir.
Okay.
It would stop probably 3 or 4 feet short of the edge of the house.
And it's going to cross over and have a gate?
Correct.
Okay.
It would still allow access to the meter, the electric meter, and there would be a gate, so there'd certainly be easement.
Okay.
And it would go right alongside the neighbor's fence that's standing there?
Yeah, I suppose it would, yeah. I mean, it would connect to my existing fence that's already in my back. It'd be a straight line out.
Okay.
So yes, it would be pretty much butted up against that, I guess.
Okay.
So from your 6-foot high fence in the rear yard,
Yes,
come up between the two houses on your property,
correct,
and then stop short of the front of your house.
correct.
Okay.
It would pretty much conceal kind of where those garbage cans are, would conceal that, would conceal the wood pile, and also let me develop that ground, that property, that ground there.
Okay. Paul, you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Scott?
Nope.
Okay. Any further?
No, just, again, I don't want to belabor the point, but there's fences in my neighborhood that already exist, that are, 30 and 40 feet in length. So, and I'm on a cul-de-sac. I don't think that alters the essential
Okay.
appeal of the neighborhood.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in support of the appeal? Hearing none, is there anyone here who'd like to speak in opposition to the appeal? Hearing none, if there's no objection from the board, do we have a motion to close the public hearing on this case?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
will you read the roll?
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Simon?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye. Would anyone like to start the conversation?
I think it would add nicely to the property.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I think it would add nicely to the property.
I know he mentioned others were non-conforming in the neighborhood, and as a board, we can't really accept that in determining this case. The fact
Right.
that there's other non-conforming issues, okay? That said, I understand his plight, And the concern that I have as I look at it is the return to the house is going to could make a difference, significant difference in the visual.
What was that last part?
When it returns to the house, he's
Right.
coming down the property line and he's returning with a gate to
Right.
the house. That's going to definitely, if it was just a straight fence coming to this point, I'm not sure. I
You
understand-
mean with an open end?
Yes, open
Yeah.
end. I'm not so certain the visual would be significantly noticed, okay? But once you return that to the house, I think that's going to definitely change the appearance.
I don't see a problem with it, personally. I think that even though we're not able to take into consideration, I think it's in concert with a lot of the other properties in the hood.
Yeah, but at the same time, the
I know
fact
what-
that someone else violates
Right.
doesn't mean,
I know we're not
We
supposed
don't
to.
know what the other properties are. I mean, they might have their own variances for whatever reason.
yeah, we don't know if they have a variance or not, yeah.
But to me, it wouldn't be unattractive. I don't think it's, personally, it would be more attractive than what you see right here.
Scott, what are your thoughts?
I'm with you guys. I think that would be a beneficial addition to it. Now, the only other concern I have is the fence that's there, because he's gonna run his fence right by it and then over. So then you're just gonna have the other fence just sitting there with like a foot between them.
That would be the question I would ask, if we grant this and someone, what happens to this fence here?
I mean, that's up to the neighbors. That's not,
Yeah.
I know, but I mean, it's a potential issue, you know where I'm going with that,
I mean, depending where the property line is too, there might not
Yeah.
necessarily be a gap between them.
But if we allow them to come down this way, and then the other property owner says, I want to do the same thing to hit my corner,
Question I would ask too for the appellant is, have they performed a survey to determine where the lot lines are?
right, but let's say, just for argument's sake, that if that fence is on his property, the neighbor's property line, okay?
The existing
The existing fence is on his property, okay?
on the appellant's.
No, the other
And the neighbors.
Okay.
property,
Okay.
okay?
I just think it would enhance myself. I'm not too much concerned with, I'm sure that that neighbor is aware of this request. So, at least I would be.
My understanding, reading the appellant's letter, that it's owned by Cincinnati Metro Housing, so I'm presuming that's a tenant in the building.
So then there'd be less of an issue, because they probably they wouldn't care. They would like the fact that somebody else put a fence up for them, I would think.
Okay, so then they come back and say, I want to tie the end of that fence to the front of my house.
Based on what reasoning?
Uh,
Just
They did
because
it
he
on this
did?
side, so why can't I do it on my side?
Well, we've always looked towards site specifics, rather than, and you mentioned it, given the other pictures. Is that we don't know the circumstances surrounding the construction of those fences and what was germane to the variance. To me, what is germane to this is he's got a rental property next door. And
Not well maintained.
not well maintained, as well as animal trespassing. So that would provide us the reason behind granting the request. And then it would be up to that other property owner next door to say that they wanted to do something, but why? Just because just because Mr. Weir did it to his, we're gonna, because we have a substantial reason why.
Right. And
What would be the other appellant's reason why?
right, and here, I'm working through both sides of my mind at the same time, okay? And if I was the neighbor, I would come in and say, you granted him the right to put the fence between that corner and his house. How can you stop me from putting a fence between that corner and my house?
So variance was granted. They never applied for variance, they never requested anything. what they do now, it's all speculative, it's irrelevant. in my
Yeah, it is speculative, but that's why
So,
we're talking.
well,
in-
my point, though, is let's deal with what we have at hand.
Right,
I'm
that's
not worried
why-
about next door neighbor at
Well,
this
I have a couple of things to mention too. Just please remember the standards that we need to consider, the 7 standards. So we need to consider those in making our decision, to make the decision defensible. We also need to remember that the variance runs with the land, and just because one is owner occupied versus rental occupied, they're both single-family homes, and that necessarily shouldn't be taken into consideration.
Right. Yeah.
Well, then my question would be is, given the testimony of the appellant regarding the condition of the side yard, what does he have then, if not a fence, to rectify the situation? Because he's coming to us saying, I got a problem. My request is to do it by a fence. And is there a way for him to rectify what he's requesting of us in some other?
You can do a 4-foot-high, 75% open fence
Yeah, there.
without any permission. He wants the 6-foot. I'm sorry?
With the zoning certificate.
Sorry, with his
With a
own,
zoning certificate, yeah.
without any permission from the board, I should clarify.
Yeah, they don't need our permission to do that. You know, my concern is, and as I've expressed it, and I haven't really honed in for sure which way I'm gonna go on this yet, but when you bring it to that point and take it to the house, okay, is that gonna change the visual in the neighborhood and impact that? That's what I'm considering. John, you're
good with
pretty,
it.
you're pretty solid and
Yeah.
want to go, right?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Scott, what are your thoughts?
I'm fine with it as well.
Okay.
I mean, I just see, as long as it's well maintained, and I don't think it's gonna be a detriment to the house or the neighborhood. And like he said, I mean, you can't sit here and worry about what everyone else around him is
Right.
thinking. If they wanna extend the fence, then they can come to us and ask for it. But we're dealing with
Right.
this property.
If I was a landlord on the other side, most things I'd do, I'd probably take down that one fence, and if anything, put a gate in.
Well, that's speculative and, you know.
Yeah, it's
we can't-
speculative, but that, you know.
I understand you because I speculate, we all sit here and we speculate a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but for what it's worth, he's not gonna have to pay to put a fence up.
Paul, your thoughts?
I'm kind of both ways on it too. I mean, I see Mr. Haber's point as well, as, you know, we need to have something to rest our head on, and what's, as staff has stated, you know, how do we fit it within the standards? I mean, I'm kind of looking at the standards, you have to stretch a little bit, I think, in order to fit our approval.
Well, Steve, were you gonna say something,
Well,
Scott?
I was gonna say, I don't think a 4-foot open fence is gonna look right. And then, cause then you're gonna see his privacy fence in the back behind it. I think that would look worse than just bringing it up to the house and running it over.
Mhm. Okay. Steve?
Yeah, this is a challenging one for me.
It is, I understand, it is very challenging.
I mean, I think, you know, given that picture that we're seeing right there, to see a privacy fence such that that side yard, trash cans, wood pile and whatnot would be concealed, would be an enhancement. But that doesn't mean that anytime anybody's got a trash can in the side yard that we need to put in a privacy fence.
I'm in the same quandary as you are. Does anyone want to propose a motion? Is anybody at that point? Or is there further discussion?
No, I'd like to propose that we approve it.
Or you want to go further? Are you making a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, make your motion.
I move that case number 19-2022, that we approve the request as submitted and based on the drawings. There is no drawings, is there?
No.
Based on the data submitted on July,
There's the drawing, John.
based on the drawing submitted on July 5th, 2022. That it be started within 6 months and completed within a year.
Is there a second?
I second.
Before we do that, we need some findings for before we take a vote, is there findings in support of approving the variance?
Yeah, if you're, yes, the staff recommendation was against it, so you have to, we have to, if you're going to motion for it, then you're going to have to just,
Find a reason why.
yeah.
Because I think it'll be a good enhancement to the neighborhood and serve the need of the resident. That help?
Does that give you what you need, Paul? Or do you want more?
Do you want them to fit it within the standards?
Yeah, do you have anything else to go along with the standards to be considered?
1 through 7, John, on the back.
So number 3, the central character of the neighborhood, that's what we could use for your first reason, and then serve the need of the neighbor.
You would have to say in his motion,
Maybe number 6 would be serve the need of the neighbor.
would not be, he would have to say would not be substantially.
Right, so, well, number 3 speaks to the character of the neighborhood. Number 6 speaks to the owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated, so it would be, cannot be feasibly obviated.
Okay.
And then if you could provide maybe one more.
So we're talking about number 3, the essential character of the neighborhood would not be
Substantially altered.
due to
Correct.
the
Yeah.
existence of other fences within the neighborhood, privacy fences that encroach into the side yard.
And we don't know that. The
We
pictures
don't
that
know
we
that, yeah.
we saw were mainly corner lots, so we don't know if that's technically their rear yard or their side yard without
Okay.
doing
And we
additional
don't know if they
research.
were
But-
granted a variance.
But that was based off of testimony given by the applicant.
Okay.
And the property owner's predicament cannot be feasibly alleviated through other methods.
Obviated. Yeah.
Obviated. There's too many syllables, it's tough for me.
Is there a second to John's motion?
I second.
Will you call the roll?
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
No. It is passed, okay, they'll get in touch with you when it's available for you, okay?
Yes, can we take just a brief recess to?
Sure, we will recess for 10 minutes.
Recess, we've never taken a recess.
2 minutes? Correction, 2 minutes. I thought she needed, never mind, 2 minutes. You get 2 minutes.